in himself at the beginning, and he got kind of knocked to his knees, and that's where he really lost that confidence and had to kind of rebuild it with God over time.
Okay. All right. So he had a false sense of confidence, got knocked to his knees, and God had to build him up with some real confidence, right? I've been there. Get a little puffy. I got this. I got this. God, I don't got this. Anything else about him?
He went through a lot. I don't know.
What's that?
He went through a lot.
He did go through a lot. He did go through a lot. So
his ministry
is one of the first civil rights leaders.
Oops.
Ooh, never thought of it that way. Good. You're coming up with all sorts of stuff. Murdery, civil rights leader. Okay, that's true. Didn't think of that. Lynn, what did you say?
I just said his real ministry started when he was really old. He wasn't done. I mean,
Yeah.
his years were when he was really old.
Right. Okay. Awesome. There's so much to him. So I do think just because I'm studying him, and unless you guys want to study something different, I might just comb through his whole existence because I feel like there's so much to him. But for today, we're looking at the burning bush. So if I can get, we're Exodus chapter 3. We're just going to read 1 through 12 today. Somebody can read that.
I can read.
Okay.
Okay. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called out to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain.
Okay. We've all heard this. What stands out? Let's talk about what we just read.
Well, I'm just finishing up reading Exodus right now,
Mhm.
Reggie. So it's, to me, what stands out is not in this passage, but just the fact that when Moses talks to God later and his face is beaming and shining and people have a hard time looking at him, I'm like, Moses had a hard time looking at God. So it's just like, oh, wow, like it's so cool to see when you spend time with God, when you start to get intimate with him, and when it's like you and him, and then you go back to help other people, like it's hard for people to look at. It's hard for people to maybe understand what you're trying to communicate because you're just beaming in an otherworldly way. So I just think it's cool to see the connection that it was God, but it's now also Moses. Like God shares that special quality about himself with those who choose to remain in Jesus. Well, at this point, obviously not Jesus, but remain in him.
Right.
Very
Good.
cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Anything else? What stands out for you as we read through this?
I just love that he's talking to God at all, and that God's talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't even know what that would be like to actually converse with God in an audible way.
Right. Right. Just the nature of the relationship itself is beautiful. Okay. Anything else?
I think I was just like, sorry, go ahead, Nikki.
No, I was just going to say kind of what Lynn said, but more just the part that, just God kind of made that whole bush burn just to call him over. And I don't know, I just kind of like that sentiment, that idea, that God went and did something like extraordinary just for him.
Yes. Oh, love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. What were you going to say, Tabby?
I was going to say kind of what Gianna was saying, but just like Moses's reaction to the fact that, oh, like this is God that I'm talking to, and like he's afraid, he hid his face. I feel like now we can kind of take for granted when we do get to speak to God, like who we're talking to, and we kind of forget and we lose the reference. Today I went on a walk, which was a feat on its own, but and I had like my AirPods in and I'm listening to worship music and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pray, I'm gonna do all this, and I kept trying to like pray for all these things, but all these worship songs were just about like him and like worshiping him, and I was like, okay, like this is just a worship you walk. I am not gonna talk about me or anything. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
God
love
just
that.
deserves that sometimes, or all the time.
Yeah. That's usually my prayer walk time, is just praising God. Tavy, anything before I move on?
Yeah, just Moses is, but who am I to be doing this stuff? That's up for me, because that's always my response. Why? Who? What? You meant me? This person? You saw what I did yesterday, right? You heard what I said, right? And you still want me to do this? So that stands out for me.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, let's go and unpack it a little bit. This is a story, like I said, everybody's familiar with it. We're in awe of the burning bush, and we should be, but there are other pieces to it. So I want to go through and look at other pieces as well. So we're just going to walk through. I mean, this literally, when I did it, it kind of moved me to tears, just a little bit. That's how much it impacted me, just the simplicity of it. So it starts in the beginning. It says, now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and had led the flock to the far side of the wilderness, came to Horeb, the mountain of the Lord. And then it says, there the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire. You think about this and you go, when God appears to us, when he makes himself known, he does something powerful just to get our attention. Think about your life. What has God done that was just mind-blowing, that got your attention? Can you think of anything?
I think for me, he allowed me to marry my high school sweetheart. He's only the third person I ever dated. And it's because when I was a kid, I told God that I just didn't want to play that game. I didn't want to be a part of that game. And so now looking back, we're going to celebrate 17 years in a little bit. Like, that is amazing.
Wow. Good.
I think for me, just where I am in my life now. And, I always stand in awe, like, how did I get here?
Right.
This is going to sound so very corny, but there was a time when I was younger, and one of my first jobs was a courtesy clerk at Vaughn's. And if you don't know what a courtesy clerk is, I'll educate you children. It is the person that bags your groceries. We called them courtesy clerks, and we used to go to school for it so that I wouldn't smush your bananas, right? Okay. Well, I used to watch I lived in Pasadena, but I was adjacent to Locking Out of Flint Ridge, and it's a very affluent area there, right? So the people that came in were, they were affluent. But anyway, they used to come in with their little grocery baskets, and they were housewives. They were housewives, but they were like decked out. And I used to say, I want to do that. Like, I never saw any shame in wanting to be the woman that ironed her husband's shirts or made his dinner or fixed his plate. And I get to do that. I don't like it as much as I thought I was going to like it when I was dreaming about it when I was 17. But I do stand in awe that I have that ability. Like, I don't dress up to go to the grocery store. That's a lie from hell. But if I wanted to, I could. You know what I mean? And I say that because even though I used to daydream about that, nothing in my life at any point said that I would have this opportunity now. So seeing that I'm coming up on, how long have I been married? I think almost 16 years. Do you know how long be? About,
I don't. We'll just say 16.
Okay, coming up on 16 years, I think, or somewhere like that. But to see where I didn't have any hope for that, and seeing my life now, like I just had a conversation with a girl today whose aunt was trying to accuse me of something, and I said, I don't need to steal from nobody. I'm spoiled rotten. And that's not to imply that we are wealthy, but I am very spoiled. I really am. You know what I mean? And I had to think back on that and say, I have that simple life that I wanted. I was not the girl that was like, oh, I want to go to college. And no, I just wanted to iron somebody's shirts and make him food that he really liked and keep him fat. I'm doing it. That's all.
That is awesome. I thought about, and you guys, most of you have heard me share this, and it's in my book as well. When I was reading this, I thought about, because it's God shows himself powerful to get our attention in different ways in our lives. So he shows up for Moses in this flaming bush burning. And Moses like, whoa, what is that? And I share in my book about when I lost my child, when I had my miscarriage in the beginning. And, I was devastated. I'm sitting there, I'm waiting to hear if I didn't even know I had lost the child. I was hoping and praying against all odds that I had not. And then I overheard the doctor outside the curtain say, oh, go ahead and just clean her up. We need that room. She's just had a miscarriage. It's not a big deal. So that's how that was my first hearing of it. And I'm devastated in that moment. And in walks this little Black woman, this little nurse. She was chocolatey, just like me. She was round, just like me. And she had this Southern baked accent, just like me. And she looked at me and she patted my leg. And she said, baby, God must love you an awful lot. Those cells, they're splitting so quickly during this time, and something didn't quite connect the way it was supposed to. God's got other plans for you. Go ahead, get dressed. You're going to be all right. And she walked out the door. I mean, it literally was just that simple. But it was one of those moments I was like, here you have this young girl totally devastated with life in this moment. And in walks this little woman who could have been my grandma. Everything about her was perfect for me. It was like God sent me the angel that I needed to have in that particular moment. He needed her to be a little chocolate woman. He needed her to have a grandmother feel to her. He needed her to be Southern because I'm a Southern girl. So everything that comforts me, God had it walk into the room that day. And it gave me what I needed to go, God is with me. She had never met me before. She didn't know if I was a Christian or not a Christian. And for her, the first thing she said was, God must love you an awful lot. I was like, okay, this is freaky. God was speaking. It was God showing himself in my burning bush. He was showing himself powerful. And I love, as we go through this, you're going to see God does that. He's like, okay, first, I'm going to show you who I am, which is what he does for Moses. And then if we look in verse 4, it says, when the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. I had thought about, it says, when the Lord, and I circled, saw. What does that insinuate? First, we got this burning bush going. And then the next thing it says is, and when the Lord saw. You can see, there's a connection to it. Anybody know? You're muted. If you're talking, Tava, you're muted, but I see you moving, but.
I don't know. I just get that maybe God was paying attention to Moses. He had his eyes on Moses.
God had his eye on Moses. God shows himself powerful to us, and then he stands back and he waits to see what we're going to do. Remember when we saw Jesus and the disciples on the boat, and Jesus stood on the shore, remember? And what did he do? He watched. to see what they were going to do. And it gave me chills because when I read this, I went, that's what Jesus did. He was with them. He was with them. He was with them. And then when he sent them off on their own, he stood back and watched to see, what are you going to do? Am I still with you? How are you going to respond? So here God gives Moses this burning bush moment. And then he stands back and he watches to see what he's going to do. What does Moses do? It's in the scripture. What does he do? Verse 4.
Goes over to look.
He goes over to look. I mean, we go, well, yeah, of course, but that's not a given. Think about it. If you're driving down the street, you see a bush on fire, you might go take a look, but you might not. Right?
I'm gonna hit the gas. Yes.
So there's something in there. You go, okay, God wanted to see what is going to be your response, Moses. You're seeing something you've never seen before. You can either be terrified by it and don't do anything, which sometimes we do. God can show up and we're so terrified, it just cripples us. We're like, I just can't move. I'm paralyzed. You know, but he's going, are you going to come to it? Are you going to come running to me? Are you going to run away from me? And we see, says when the Lord saw that Moses moved towards it, moved over to it, then God did something. What did God do?
Called to him.
He called him. Our response brings about a response from God. God is waiting to see, are you going to act? Our action brings a reaction. So often we're waiting for God to just do something, and God's like, I'm waiting for you.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you. I've already done my part to get your attention. I'm waiting to see, are you going to respond to it? Because he didn't call him before. He waited until he did something. G, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's what I was thinking, like a large part of my story is I felt like God had been showing up many, many times throughout my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, I was not responding yet. So this reminds me of like, okay, like God will still keep coming up in powerful ways and keep giving us the opportunity to see him. And he's just waiting for us to see it. And so I was just like, I wonder how many times God had tried to get his attention. Like, because for me, there was many things I can look back like, dang, how did I miss that? How did it not lock me in that time? Like, why did I miss it?
Right.
And then also in the sermon that Lynn, I'm pretty sure you watched, I think it was 2 Sundays ago, but they were saying that like, oh, Mary and Martha. Martha had asked Jesus a question.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jesus already had his like thoughts or judgment about her, but he didn't give out his thoughts until she asked him a question, until she came to him. So it's like God, Jesus is waiting for us to come, to interact, to have a relationship, ask questions, and then he will come and bring us those answers. And so it just reminds me of this sermon that we heard a couple weeks ago.
Right. Yeah, I think it was Lynn. I'm not sure. I think it was Lynn who was, when we were sharing what we got out of this, what hit us, the relationship between them. There's a give and take. You know, do we have a give and take relationship with God? Or are we just, you know, sometimes we just sit back and go, okay, God, do whatever you're going to do because I have no control anyway. Sometimes we can go there. Right?
Mm.
But that's not a give and take. That's just like okay, squash me because you can. You know, God is like, no. I'm showing myself powerful because I want you to know who you can have a relationship with. But now I need you to, come on, we got to work together. It's a give and take. It's a push and pull. Then we're actually, you know, cranking on all cylinders. But if you're just sitting back waiting for me to do all the work, that doesn't serve me, doesn't serve you. Or if you're going to just go do all the work, it's like we sometimes go from one extreme to the other. God, I got it. I got it. I'll call you if I need you. And there's no relationship in that. But I love the fact that you just see the back and forth. It's almost like you see a dance between them. God stands back and he watches to see if he's going to respond. When he responds, then God counter responds. And we've got to be able to look at our own lives and go, God, I can see, like G is saying, you've shown yourself so many times. Now I can look back and map out, have I responded or not? Ah, that's why I haven't felt you with me, or that's why I've missed the answer. I haven't been responding. Okay. And then we look down. So he calls him, and then he says, here I am. Look down in verse 5. Whoever read. Tabby, can you read that one more time?
Verse 5. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground.
Let's stop and talk about that. What is that? Because we hear that same phrase with Joshua. To take off your sandals, because the place you're standing is holy ground. What does that mean?
I don't know. But what I'm thinking is that it's just like wherever God is holy. Like, because like the earth is not holy now because God has separated himself from it. But where he brings himself in the tabernacle, in the tent, on the top of a mountain, in a bush, like that is wherever is holy within us now. So that's my thought.
Very good. Wherever the presence and the power of God is holy ground. He says, I don't care what it looks like to you. I don't care what it maybe feels like to you. The place where you're standing is holy ground. Why does he tell him to take off his sandal?
Because it's dirty.
Take off your dirty sandals. It is dirty, but I think there's a little bit deeper meaning to it.
I think it's just respect to just, take off your shoes, relax your feet.
It's a respect and a reverence. You got this relation. We're hearing this back and forth relationship, right? So we can almost get too comfortable with that. Go, yeah, God, you and I, we just hanging, we chilling. And he's like, okay, we are, but okay, now you need to also know that there's a respect and a reverence that needs to be. I think at times as a church, we have to be careful not to lose respect and reverence, because we can become very casual in our attempt to just be relatable to everyone. Moses was being relatable, but God says, but when you approach me, however, as relatable and loving and in sync as we are, you approach me with reverence and you approach me with respect. Who else can burn up a bush and not have it burned down? We have to always remember the power of this God that we're able to approach freely. We can't take that for granted. Otherwise, we lose something so very great. Like Tabby was saying, I'm going on this prayer walk, but God was saying, no, you're going on a God and me walk. He says, you can't lose it. We have to put aside ourselves at times. When God says, when it's time for you to take off your sandals and stop, you take off your sandals and stop. When he says it's time to not pray for everything else, but just spend time with me, you center and go, okay, God, it's just you and me. How often do we give God the respect, the reverence, the honor that he truly deserves? Do you feel like at times you just kind of take him for granted? Was it just me?
Man. Yes. Jesus. All the time.
Yeah.
There's a saying, I'm sure you know it, familiarity breeds contempt. Have you ever heard that before?
Mm-hmm.
We have to be careful because it's a thin line. We want to be familiar with God, but you've got to be.
I'm sorry. It reminds me of my relationship with my kids. I remember when my boys were in middle school, and obviously I have a very intimate, loving, close relationship with them. But when they started calling me dude, I said, I'm not dude.
Yes.
That's other people. I'm not dude.
Yes, absolutely. We can get comfortable with that. It's like even when I hear teachers or people say, oh, no, just call me BJ. I'm like, no, you don't call me BJ.
Call me BJ.
You don't know me like that. We get too familiar. I had a student today, he's, Miss Virgil, I need, this is the principal, but, he's just, I got to go talk to him. He just busts into their office. I'm going, excuse me, Miss Virgil's working. You need to go to class. It's his way of getting out of going to class, is I need to go see Miss Virgil. I got to go hang out Miss Virgil. And they allow it. And then we wonder why the respect isn't there, you know? And I was like, no. So they asked me later, so did you get him to go to class? I said, yeah. I said, how? I said, I told him to go.
I use my words.
But, you know, I'm going off, but you understand what I'm saying is God is saying, as close as we are, Moses, because I want us to be dancing together. But as close as we are, you have to also remember who I am. There's a reverence and a respect. Take off those sandals because the place where you're standing is holy. And I think go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I think that that's really important for me, like to really get all the time, because I think if not, I start like attributing my characteristics as a human to God, you know? And so there was a long time where I really thought God was just so unfair. And then I realized it's because I was judging him on what I thought was fair. So really I was trying to be God, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's important, again, comb through this stuff. There are more pieces to it. There are little layers. If we strip through it, we go, okay, God, you're telling us something here. You're not just showing us a bush that's burning. You're telling us some things we need to learn, some lessons along the way. Okay. But I love also, I think it was Nikki, I'm not sure who said it earlier, wherever we stand is holy. Oh, that was G. Wherever we stand is holy ground. And that too is something to really get, because sometimes the ground that we're standing on is so shaky, you know, or it's so ugly, it's so distasteful that we feel like, just get me out of this, get me away from these people, get me. And God's going, but if I'm here, it's holy ground. What do we know about Mount Horeb? Anything? Any history buffs? What do we know about it?
Mountain of God, according to the scripture, but that's all I know.
Mm-hmm. Mountain of God.
Is that where the tablets were, where he gave Moses tablets?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Remember when Moses went up to get the tablets and they were down there dancing all naked and go to Yeah, Mount. What's that?
I thought that was Mount Sinai.
Well, I was about to say Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb are well, it's questionable as to whether or not they're one and the same of the two mountains. So they're saying basically one half, the back side of it was Horeb, the front side of it was Sinai. So you get that interchange. But my point is, you know, you see a lot of, it's known as the mountain of the Lord, but also, you know, a lot of crazy sinful stuff happened there too. But he says the place where you're standing is holy ground. So holy ground is not just inside a church building or inside of a synagogue. Sometimes we can think in terms of what is holy ground and what is not. But the example I think he's showing us is that wherever I am, wherever my presence is holy ground. And we need to reverence and respect it based on that. Does that make sense? Lynn, were you about to say something?
No. I'm with you.
Okay.
I think that's why when we think about our bodies too, it's like we have to respect our own body as the temple, like in many ways, whether
Right.
it's, you know, yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, that's what I think about when I was reading that scripture.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Tabby, can I have you read again? Can you just read 7 through 9?
Sure can. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them.
Okay. This is the one that really, it moved me.
Mm-hmm.
I read this and I went, wow, we're seeing God in all of his power, in all of his splendor, but also in all of his tenderness. When I read this, I went through and I circled. The Lord said, I have seen, I have heard, I am concerned, and I have come. That moved me. I was like, what? This powerful God that has this bush burning that did not burn up said, come here, Moses. And when Moses comes, he says, guess what? I've seen, I've heard, I was concerned, and I've come. Why is that important for us to hear and know?
Sometimes we can feel forgotten about.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Just it talks about our value, how important. And right now, my husband is really struggling out in the bubble to feel all that. So
Right.
these type of scriptures or this point is something that I can share with him and like really helps him come back down after feeling disvalued in a type of job that makes you feel like without production, or if I don't put you in, that you are of no value out here. So
Right.
yeah, it'll be good to share.
Yeah. Again, go ahead, Nikki. Looks like you were about to say something.
I was amazing. You just read my mind. Or I'm talking too much this time. I was going to say, because I studied something recently and I was like, man, isn't it funny how Satan's always attacking this like one point, that this one lie, like he's always trying to convince me that God does not really care for me the way I want to be cared for. Yeah. And so I feel like when you pointed that out, I was like, you see, he does, you know?
Yes.
Love that.
And it was just, it's beautiful. It's almost like he broke into song all of a sudden. You know, he's got, let me show you how powerful I am. And then he was like, let me wrap myself. He became a mom or a dad in that moment. You know, he's saying, I know you've been through a lot and I've heard the cries and da. But just to circle those literally, I've seen it, I've heard it, I'm concerned, and I've come, made me feel God's got me. I mean, I just felt literally warm and going, I'm not out here by myself. God is hearing, he's seeing, he is concerned. But then he says, and I came. That's what everyone wants. That's the desire of all of our hearts, is that in the midst of whatever we're going through, God, please let me know that you see me. Let me know that you hear me. Let me know that you care. And then ultimately, let me know that you're going to come get me. And that's what he says to this Moses, who in the beginning we said, what do we know about him? He's kind of an insecure guy. He's not so sure about himself, which we're going to see. He's going to come back up, right? God knows that. So he embraces him with all of those things that he knows he needs. And then in verse 10, he says, what?
So now go. You want me to keep reading?
Yeah, the next one after that.
Okay. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt.
Before he says, I'm going to send you, he says, first, I want you to know I see you, I hear you, I'm concerned, and I came. He comforts him. He soothes him. He convinces him. And then he says, and now I'm going to send you. Why do you think he didn't send him before he gave the other? He could have just said, okay, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh. Go do this. He didn't. There's an order to it.
I think he met him at his heart level. They connected on a heart level first. It wasn't just a mind to mind. This is the plan. Go do it. There was a connection there.
Yeah. Why is that important?
Because you got to know people care. You got to know that this isn't, you're not just a pawn in somebody else's plan.
Right.
It matters. Right.
And what was he sending him off to do?
Deliver the people.
Yeah.
His children.
Yeah. He says, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh and to bring the people of Israel out of Egypt. What do you think Moses' response was?
Me?
What? What?
Probably looked around like, you talking to me?
If
Be like,
God
"Hey,
had,
Lord, you're the same God that's the father of Jacob, the father of this is the same one. All right.
are you sure about that? If he had said, I'm going to send you before he said all the rest, Moses probably would have, I got to get out of here. I'm tapping out. Because we see he starts to question. What's the very next thing he says down in verse 11? Tapping. But Moses said to God,
"Who am I?" that
but
I-
Moses said to God, oh, well, wait a minute. Well, I got time out.
What do you mean me?
Who am I? How does God, this is what I found interesting. How did God answer him?
I will be.
Certainly I'll be with you. I'm going to be right by your side. I'm not leaving you alone. When I tell you to go, it's just a metaphor. Calm down.
He didn't answer Moses' question. Because Moses says, who am I?
You like, you're nobody.
Right. He didn't, it's like,
Well, he basically said, it doesn't really matter who you are because I'm me.
yes,
I'm going
thank
with
you.
you, so don't worry about it.
Thank you, Lynn. He redirects it, Tabby. He redirects him. He realizes, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go there. He's like, I heard you, Tabby, but I'm just going to pretend I didn't. Basically, that's what it is.
You ain't nobody.
Moses immediately go, who am I? And God's inside is going, oh, bless your heart. Lord, have mercy. It's not about who you are. It's about who I am. So he doesn't answer him. He doesn't even bother to give him, that the time of the day, because we can go down that rabbit hole. Well, God, who am I? I mean, I don't even belong in the palace. I mean, God, but we can start. Again, it made me think of when Jesus, the synagogue, when they took him, they started asking him questions, are you really the Son of God? Da, 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 da. And you realize many times he remained silent. There wasn't even worth giving an answer. This is one of those situations where God's like, okay, that's not even worth giving an answer. Who am I? God's like, it's not important who you are, Moses. What's important is I will be with you. It's about who I am, not about who you are. How often do we get caught up in not doing what our powerful God is trying to get us to do because what we see is who we are?
What the twine?
What?
Can you say it again?
I said, how often do we find ourselves caught up when we have our powerful God asking us to go and do something, and we get caught up in who we are instead of who he is? That's how Satan stops us in our tracks. Because we are. Moses is everything that we said in the beginning. He's insecure. He's cocky in the beginning, then he loses his confidence. And all those things we said about him, they're true. What are some things people could say about you that you know is true that would make you? Tavia's like, I'm going to mute myself.
I was waiting for Nikki to blast me. She ready. She's like, I got it, Gianna.
Things that make you quiver because you know there's truth to it. Right? You don't have to tell me. It's hypothetically. But we all have something. People can say some things, and because there's a thread or shred of truth, we go, oh yeah. That's that who am I question that Moses asked. And God did not even bother to give it an answer. We have to stop responding to all of those, who am I? And instead put out there who he is. He's with me. He's with me. They go, well, who's with you? Which we're not going to go into tonight. But he goes on, it says, I am the God of who? He says, name him all. I am the God of, and he's boom.
Abraham,
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We've got, again, he's showing us the power that is walking with us. This was not just, wow, look at this burning bush miracle. That's awesome, which it is. But he was also showing us other glimpses into who he is. And we can't miss those glimpses, because we too, even though ours isn't written in the Holy Scripture, if God was writing a Bible today, he could very well have a book of Nikki doing something incredibly powerful. And Nikki would be asking, who am I? And he would be able to say, I am with you. That's how powerful our God is. Moses was not an exception. He's just like us. A little jacked up, a little crazy, a little murderous, a little bit of everything. But it wasn't about who he was. It was about who was with him and the incredible power. And then for him, as he goes on his journey, like I said, we're going to probably study him out a little bit more, for him to know and for us to know that we are seen, we have been heard, God has been concerned, and God has showed up for us. He said, I am not leaving you out there by yourself. I know it feels like it in the midst of crazy, but every tear, I've seen it. Every cry, I've heard it. Every bad word people said about you, I'm concerned. And that's why I'm here. Amen? That's all we got. But this little thing, it just moved me today. I was like, wow, God, thank you. Like a little butterfly kiss.
Good.
I was kind of reading further down because
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's my favorite part. Because then Moses is like, but God, and he's like, nah. You know?
Yes. Yes.
Like, that part you could read with some attitude and have, anyway. So, Moses, he's like, who am I? And then a little further down, he's like, well, I am who I am. He kind of like flips his question around.
Right.
Who am I? I am who I am. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, it's in capitals on mine. Can you see it?
Yeah.
I am who I am.
Who I am.
Yes.
I think it was cool when you were saying like, it's not important, like who we are. And then I was telling myself, and that is not the same as God saying, I don't care about you. And sometimes I can equate them as the same. Like, it doesn't matter who I am. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You don't matter about who I am. You don't care. But it's not the same.
Yeah. Good.
So cool.
Very good.
I was also going to say, this morning I read Nehemiah 1 because I'm reading the Bible through. The plan was to do a year. I'm just reading the Bible through. Like the first chapter is Nehemiah's prayer. Like so many times in the Bible, people are crying out to God and they're begging him like to hear me, hear my prayer. And I really love that you pointed that out, BJ, that we are seen and that we are heard and that he is concerned. I feel like that's just the theme of the Bible is, yes, God saw, he heard, and like that was the plan from the beginning, you know, to show up because he was concerned.
Right.
He already knew what was. I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Anything else? If not, we're closing out. All right. Good day, guys. Love you guys. This has been awesome. Hold on to that little tidbit of, like I said, I just felt like it was just a little butterfly kiss from God. I was like, oh, that is so sweet. So I think we're going to continue just looking at Moses. And guys, please feel free. If anybody wants to teach, just say, BJ, can I teach the next one? I'm totally game. I know we did that a little bit in the book of John. So don't hesitate to jump in there. All right.
Okay.
Thanks for the encouragement.
You don't never hear that from me, but okay.
Bye, guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Be good.
Bye.